Well, good morning. I'm here in Virginia, enjoying the blue skies and the sunshine, and just as I started this video, one of the local hummingbirds went right past me here. But I'm here today to talk about the Dolomites, to make a summary Dolomites video. What to say about the Dolomites? They're probably my new favorite range in all the world to go trekking through. But more on that later. How about the Dolomites? Every day, every single day, usually every hour, I'd be looking around just going, whoa, look at that vista. This is just stunning. I mean, sometimes it was like, I don't know which direction to look to get the best vista. So wonderful range. I can recommend it to anyone. And sort of more on that a bit later too in the video. But there are some downsides to the Dolomites as well. I found it just a pain in the butt to do the planning for the AV-1. Whereas it's a very established route. You can buy several guidebooks available. I bought the one by Jillian Price to help with my planning. But I didn't find it that great for a planning resource for the Dolomites. Well, the first thing was when it came to the issue of camping along the AV-1, basically they just said, yeah, just don't. That's really not an option. And in fact, that's not true. As I was there, I discovered more and more legal designated campgrounds that are out in the wilderness that did not appear on any of the planning documents that I had. So yes, it is possible to do camping for most, if not all, of your trek. Oh, I wonder if... No, it's just a rock. I thought it might be a refugio, but I think it's just a boulder. Now, most people will plan their AV-1 or their Dolomites trek to make use of refugios and to go from refugio to refugio. But even that I found to be very arduous. I expended dozens of hours trying to piece together, using the planning resources that I had, a trek from refugio to refugio. Some of them were booked up, 6 months in advance, and they were in hard sections. And then if I couldn't get in that one, well, then I could get in this one, but it really was only 5 kilometers away. And, so it was just very, very sort of clunky. And so you need to take that into consideration if you're going to be planning an AV-1 trek or a trek in the Dolomites generally. Let me digress just a little bit on the refugios. So the refugios really run the gamut from remote mountain huts that are essentially off-grid. Some of them are truly spectacular and that you should try to make part of any Dolomites trek. I mean, they're literally located on the peaks of mountains. Just absolutely crazy. Other ones are along the highway or just down a side road off of the highway and are nothing more than relatively modest tourist hotels. Almost all of the refugios offer meals, and usually they do not offer any sort of cooking facilities. So in this regard, they're quite different than what you might find on the refuges on, for example, the Camino de Santiago, which typically don't offer meals, but do offer some kitchen facilities where pilgrims can cook their own meals. So almost everyone is not carrying their own food or very little food they're simply eating dinner and usually breakfast, and oftentimes a packed lunch prepared by the refugio in the Dolomites. The hummingbirds are out again. There are some differences that I found between the Dolomites and, for example, the Swiss Alps or even the French Alps. And that is, the first one is the Dolomites are pretty tough hiking. There's a fair amount of scrambling to be done. And the rock in the Dolomites is limestone, which offers very dramatic sort of topography, so it adds to that. But in terms of walking, you can be on a relatively modest slope, and it can be a little treacherous because the limestone is very crumbly and is sort of like rotting out underneath you. So I definitely made use of my trekking poles, and on some of these routes, you really kind of had to pick your way. Some of them are sort of not for the faint of heart, some small little sections, I would say. The other difference that kind of stood out in my mind between the Dolomites and, for example, the Swiss Alps was that there weren't nearly as many cattle grazing out on the Dolomites. Almost all the pasture land, the grassland up in the Swiss Alps is being pastured in the summertime. And so I found, for example, on the Via Alpina last year going across Switzerland, that almost never was I out of the sound of cowbells. Rarely in the Dolomites could I hear cowbells from the cattle being grazed. And so with so many cows and also sheep in the Swiss Alps, there was that much more manure on your boots, on the trail, that many more flies, which were everywhere in Switzerland, and there was very little of that in the Italian Dolomites. So I took the AV-1, the Alta Via 1, which is simply Italian for the high route number 1 in the Dolomites. Turns out there are 10 AV routes in the Dolomites. And I could tell from some of the intersections of the AV-1 with some of the other trails that there was some really spectacular terrain and really interesting places that I would want to go to that are not on the AV-1. And so I think it may behoove someone to not do something like an end-to-end trek of the AV-1. Now, I'm sort of naturally drawn to that sort of thing, Triple Crown hiking, the Camino de Santiago, the O-Trek, etc., where you start at a place and you stay on a designated route and you just go around or you go end to end. But it seems to me that the Dolomites really lend themselves to an a la carte kind of hiking experience, whereby you say, yeah, I'm going to go on this one, and then I'm going to go over there, and then I'm going to go over to the third place. I think that may be the way to go for the Dolomites.
Look at that drama. That's where the path goes. Right up there. I see some people right in the notch right now.
And in that regard, it occurs to me maybe the best way to experience the Dolomites is either as a series of day hikes in which if you want to go on vacation there for a week or 10 days, something like that, you simply rent a car and you decide on the fly where you're going to go. There are plenty of hotels and sort of some of these, as I mentioned before, refugios that are simply on the highway and they're fine. Yeah, you don't get the experience of being on a refugio, being on the peak of a mountain for your refugio experience. But it also occurs to me that if you were being flexible about that, you could find an opening for some of these really, really spectacular refugios and simply go up and do an overnight for these. Or just do one of the other routes, not the AV-1, do the AV-9 or the AV-2, for example. So I'm definitely going back to the Dolomites. It is just too good in such a compact geographic space that it's just more smiles per mile. Now, I mentioned early in the video that it's my new favorite range, and that is as of today. But I must announce that I have a new trek, actually a new series of 3 treks planned, all in Nepal, all for this autumn. So I'm going to be starting off, and I'm going to be doing the Manaslu circuit with the Sum Valley. And then I will be going directly from that, before I really even finish, and start the Annapurna circuit. So that whole combination there is probably going to be about 3 or 4 weeks. And then I'll be going back to Kathmandu, take a few days off to R&R in Kathmandu. And then I'm going to do the Kanchenjunga base camp circuit trek, and that's in the eastern part of Nepal, really a different part of Nepal than the Annapurna circuit and the Manaslu trek. So this year is going to be a big year. It started off with 3 treks in Patagonia, and then I had 3 European treks, the Camino de Santiago, the Tour de Mont Blanc, and the AV-1, and now 3 treks in the autumn. So stand by. I will make videos and I will post them as I'm able from Nepal. Until then,